Hey guys, thanks for showing up to the Shiny Things podcast. I'm Lisa Mitchell, communications expert and certified body language trainer. And I'm here to help you figure yourself out a little bit and be able to decode other people better too. The goal of Shiny Things podcast is to get you showing up as your most clued in and confident self in any situation. This season, we're focused on getting real about dating in an app-based digital world. We're going to dive into the good, bad, and really, really ugly parts of dating on demand. With so many apps bringing you so many options in such a short time, it's hard to not get distracted by shiny things. Let's get the conversation started. In this episode, we are going to talk about the fact that we don't really talk anymore. With everything being so digital and so app-based, communication between two people is often done via an app, in Messenger in an app, or via direct text once numbers are exchanged. This has become standard operating procedure. But what about phone calls? It seems like actually calling someone after they've given you their direct number makes you a really suspicious creature. People don't know what to do when you actually use a number that they gave you to call them. They don't know how to react when they're forced to talk in real time. Most calls will be directed to voicemail, and instead of a return call, you'll get a text back from the person instead. Why has calling someone become such a big freaking deal? Why is there so much hesitation around the idea of having a phone call prior to the first date, or really at any time, in the current digital dating landscape? Instead of being a quick and fairly easy way to get a little more clued in about each other, including things like their default tone of voice, level of sarcasm, amount of cleverness they can offer on the fly, and the normal pace of a conversation, as opposed to having time to make a well-scripted and strategic text exchange. People are choosing to stay a little less informed about the person on the other side of the phone. But what's the hesitation? Do you think phone calls before a first date are creepy or intrusive? Or is there a benefit to be had from picking up the phone and calling somebody first? There's very little gray area on this topic. Most people are either 100% yes, call before the first date, or they are 100% don't even think about calling me. It's just weird. It's text or nothing. Here to help me unpack this topic further is my friend, Andre Vaughn. Andre, welcome to Shiny Things.
Hello there.
Hey, so I'm gonna tell the listeners a little bit about you, my friend. And other than having a voice like butter, and always calling me homie, which I adore.
I hope that we make it through this podcast without me melting the microphone.
Oh, it could happen. That's so awesome. I'm going to look forward to that. But you are also the founder and wordsmith of the Verbal Effect, which helps people capture audiences' attention. When his clients face crucial communication moments in life or business, he helps uncover their authentic voice to give them the best chance at success. He's never been married, is recently single. I'm sure there wasn't any drama surrounding that at all.
Not at all.
And briefly used Match.com for research purposes during a relationship gap. Hey, Andre.
Hello.
Let's talk.
Well, we haven't even started right. What up, homie?
What up, homie?
All right.
It sounds so weird when I say it and so awesome when you say it. Yeah.
It's just puberty.
All right. Yeah. I don't think I have the swagger you do to pull it off, though. I'm going to let you talk as much as possible today because really, who doesn't want to listen to you instead of me?
I don't know.
Do you want to just say the alphabet? Maybe read the phone book?
A, B, C.
You're welcome, listeners. You're welcome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you're a word guy.
I am.
Your whole business, your whole passion really lies around putting words together in meaningful and awesome ways.
It is.
What do you think about using the phone in early stage relationships?
Oh, there's so much there. So there's a lot of people who just don't like to talk on the phone, period, nowadays, for doesn't matter what it's for.
Why do you think that is? What do you think the hesitation is in using the phone now?
For one thing, I think we've just gotten so used to text, it's easier. A lot of times people don't really have much of anything important to say. And so when they don't have anything important to say, it's like, well, why are you calling me?
Right.
You could have just texted that. Hey, I'm gonna be there in 3 minutes. I literally can look at my phone. It will buzz and I will tell you. If I have to pick up the phone, you just interrupted whatever I'm doing and now I'm being rude or distracted from whatever I was doing, as if texting doesn't do the exact same thing to you. But at least with that, you can answer it on your own term. I think that people are so used to being able to communicate when they want, how they want, that a personal individual conversation is much more taxing to them because they have to focus.
Yeah.
They have to work with the other person. Conversation is only fun if there's a back and forth.
Right.
And with texting, you get to choose when you respond, how you respond. You can take as much time as you want to come up with the wittiest thing, or if you want to, burn somebody and make them feel like, get them all ticked off, you just simply say K to whatever deep, long.
Oh, not the K.
Oh, yes, drop
Not
whatever,
the K.
all right, I got you.
No, we
to
don't.
whatever long screed they just gave you.
We don't want to do the K.
So I just think that people like to communicate on their own terms of who they want. It explains how they choose their feeds on Facebook, Instagram, whatever the case may be. I think people want to be able to have that same choice in conversations no matter what's happening.
Yeah. So do you think that people aren't using phone calls because they don't think they're clever enough?
I don't even think they've really put the thought into it. I just think I just don't feel like talking. Like using my voice. Sometimes you want to mask your feelings, and it's easier to mask that type of emotion in a text than it is with your voice, because I can hear your tone.
Right. See, that's for me as being someone who really is a big fan of being strategic with vocal power and reading and decoding people based on how they're delivering their words. Not even like, I know you're real content focused and message focused.
Oh, tone is essential.
Right. And so for me to not, the thing I struggle with is you are choosing, by not engaging in a phone call, you're choosing to only work on partial information, because how someone is speaking, their tone, level of sarcasm, being able to get a baseline of what's normal for somebody, you're choosing essentially to black out all that information and to make decisions based on a fraction of the total message. Especially
early in a relationship, because unless you guys just click and immediately hit it off, you don't know what this person's return rate, like how quickly they're going to respond back to you.
Yes.
If they didn't respond back to you quickly, well, is there a reason why? Are they ignoring me? There's just all sorts of stories that you can tell yourself to hype yourself up as to why this person is or is not responding to you the way that you think you should be responded to.
Right. And then when you do get a response and it's an answer, depending on how worked up you've gotten yourself in that pause, then you read it, you receive it in a way that could be totally different than how the person intended it to be.
And that's just timing.
Yeah.
That's not even talking about what they said.
Yeah, right. Exactly. it's based on
just the timing alone. You've already got yourself all sorts of bothered, because then there's I texted this person an hour ago. I need to know this like 50 minutes ago. Why are they taking this long to get to me? Or you have the too eager, where it's someone sent you something and then you respond immediately, and then they're like, well, what'd you do that for? Shouldn't you be working right now? Shouldn't you be doing something else? What were you just sitting there looking at the phone? There's no way to know what the other person's doing. And so the only thing we can do until we know this person better, and even then it's still not a concrete thing, but the only thing you can do is tell yourself a story. And that story is rarely positive.
It's like choose your own adventure, only the other person on the side of the communication doesn't get to come along with you.
Exactly. And like I said, that story is rarely positive.
No, never.
Oh, crap. Did they die in a car crash? Are they cheating on me? Are they sleeping with somebody else? Whatever the case may be. And there's just so many things that goes along.
Something catastrophic is where immediately where our mind goes.
And there's a great skit on with Key and Peele about that very thing. Not so much the timing, but what's happening.
Yeah.
One of them is really worked up about whatever they're texting, even though the actual text reads perfectly neutral. And so his friend is being perfectly neutral as well. I'm pretty sure it's Key, the one who's keyed up. And so every time he gets a response, he starts marching around the room, kicking things, and he's all pissed off because he thinks that his friend is being really disrespectful to him when his friend doesn't even realize that there's anything more to this conversation than what is actually being said.
Right. And I feel like with text, so you have the timing issue, which can automatically send people spinning. You have the content issue, and then you have how it's being received.
Yeah.
And as someone who's sending a text, you have zero control over how it's being received. And because you can't see the nonverbals, and because you can't hear the tone of voice, you have no idea how you're landing with the person on the other end of the phone.
And then you have the question of, do I ask them?
Right.
Or not?
Because then you could be creating a problem that doesn't even exist. And getting yourself into a debate that doesn't even need to happen, or making yourself look massively insecure.
Absolutely.
And paranoid because you assume the worst. Like, I don't know how you can win in this.
And then it's also interesting when I did go on one date from a Match.com matchup. We vibed very well through text.
Right.
In person, she barely spoke.
See, I think that's fascinating too.
It's so fascinating. I was just like, and I knew within 2 to 3 minutes of sitting down, when she sat down, I'm like, it's fine. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is horrible. It was okay. It's not like we hated each other.
Right.
I'm sure had we ended it in 20 minutes, it would have been the same as ending it in the hour and a half that we were together.
Right.
There was nothing there.
Right.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, how does this transition? I haven't even figured that out yet. Not talk about me personally, just how can people be so communicative through texting, but when they actually are face to face or even on the phone, it's like,
Yeah. See, I think that's really fascinating because we hear a lot about with an app-based dating, Tinder or Bumble or Hinge or whatever you're on, about how people don't always show up physically the way that they represent themselves online. So we hear about that all the time. But I think, and even maybe equally disappointing or even more so, is when people don't show up verbally the same in person as they did online or via text. Like, you have someone who's witty and funny and passionate and, knowledgeable, and they're representing kind of their A game when they have time to type it out and be strategic, but they have no ability to go real time back and forth and maintain anywhere near that level of interest.
And that personally drives me crazy because I'm big on banter.
Yeah.
Like, I think banter is one of the sexiest things a person can do in a relationship.
It's hot.
When you can go back
to get a good flow of words going back and forth.
When you can just go back and forth, messing with each other, talking about serious things, whatever the case may be, when you can do that, that connection beats almost any other one that you can have, especially early in a relationship, because it's like, all right, I actually connected with this person on more than, okay, she or he looks good.
Yeah. So what would be more disappointing to you then? If you connected with somebody on a dating app and they walked in and looked completely different, but could communicate the same way as you had been, or if they looked exactly the same, but the communication style was completely different. Like, for you personally, what would be kind of the bigger disappointment?
They're both disappointing. They probably both be write-offable offenses.
Yeah.
Because you're not showing up. So like I said, I had that situation.
Right.
I found her attractive.
So she looked like
She
looked
just
exactly,
like
so you knew what you were expecting from that way.
And she looked exactly like she did. And then when we got there, she really wasn't very reciprocative to conversation. Like, it was like one of those things where you have to pull teeth to get them to say anything.
Yeah. So
and I'm pretty good at starting a conversation. So
did you have contact after the date then? Like, did she pick it back up?
Barely.
Or was there?
Nope.
Okay. So, because I've had that happen before where it's been, really interesting and really engaging in text ahead of time. And then I've met somebody and it's kind of been like, this doesn't really feel the same. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as we aren't in each other's physical space anymore, the witty texts start up again. And I'm like, where was this dude when I was sitting across the table from you at dinner a few minutes ago?
It also makes me wonder if that happens just because people are out of practice.
Right.
Like, whether it be dating or whether it be because they just haven't sat down and talked to a lot of people outside of work.
Right.
People they already know and are comfortable with and have strategic conversations with.
Right.
Like, if we're in a work setting, there are certain things that we know we are going to talk about. If I make a stronger connection with you, then okay, maybe we add a few more layers to our relationship, but we're probably going to revolve in the very same, similar pattern of conversation.
Right.
When you get outside of that bubble and you're meeting someone brand new, neither one of you know where it's going to go. You don't know what hot topics are. You don't know what buttons that you may or may not have pushed. All those different types of things. So people try and play it safe.
Yeah.
And to me, I just find that boring.
Well, you know what's happened to me a couple of times that's kind of set me off balance just because it's unexpected is when somebody doesn't just call you out of the blue, they like FaceTime you.
Yeah. The FaceTiming thing,
See, that's
we
kind
better
of intrusive,
be connected.
Right? Like, yes, thank you.
Just a little more connected.
And I get it. Like, I'm all about, let's connect on Snapchat or send video. Like, I'm fine about like real life physical representation of who you're about to show up to see. Because I think dating apps that only do pictures are really only giving you a tiny part of the picture.
Yeah.
You got to see somebody in their own physical space and their own presence. I think that's really important. So I don't mind that. But like the kamikaze FaceTime calls that are like not a text that says, hey, I'm going to call you or hey, can you FaceTime? To give me the option to say, yes, I want to engage or no, I don't. If you just pop up on FaceTime, like it better be a butt dial. Like it better be, you hit the wrong button. Like you were trying to text me and you hit the FaceTime call instead. Like there better be some valid excuse for you to just show up and want a video chat with me. Like,
I'm guessing that this is something that women have to deal with a lot more than men.
Really?
I'm just guessing. Now from personal experience, that's never happened. But
and it hasn't happened frequently to me. Like it's only happened in a couple of cases.
You must have had them shook.
I don't know. But sometimes, I kind of work on a philosophy of authenticity. So I'll pick up the call. Like I don't care if I'm in sweats or walking out of yoga class. Like I don't care.
Oh, sure.
Like I'll pick it up. Like you're gonna. If my intention is to get to know you, eventually you're going to see me in my natural state.
Sure.
Anyways, like you're going to see me roll out a hot yoga looking tore up. Like either you're down for it or you're not, but you get what you get. But a lot of people don't kind of embrace that realness quite as, especially if it's prior to a first date.
Well, not only that, it's more like not only that, included with that is like, I might not even be on Wi-Fi right now. Do I want to spend my data on you?
Do I want to spend my data on you?
Have we had that
classic.
Much of a connection to where we're like, okay, I'm just going to FaceTime you out the clear blue? That's something you schedule, son.
I've never even thought about
I'm just saying, you got to schedule
usage.
something like that, or just at least text like, hey, FaceTime, you down? Or, give me some sort of warning. You can't just be calling up somebody on FaceTime for no damn reason. Come on.
Yeah.
Especially really early. Like, who does that? I'm sure there are people who do this.
Yeah, well,
but I don't understand why.
So here's what I find, and just feedback from talking to people a lot is you get the propensity for that if someone has been like catfished before, or if somebody has been completely
I had not considered that.
Like emotionally engaged on a text level. I am always shocked by people who will text for weeks or months before they get in the physical space with somebody, like before you sit across the table from somebody. And they are divulging, like they're emotionally and mentally in a relationship before they even meet this person.
I'm guilty of this. I've done it before.
It seems insane to me.
When you're on the outside looking in, it really does. But
so explain this. How does this happen? Explain to me someone that you've never been in their physical space.
Well,
maybe never even heard their voice.
See, this is the thing. It was at the time. It was a mix of texting and calling.
Okay.
And so the texting quickly came. Yeah, it quickly turned into calling, but texting throughout. So, but I get it and I understand.
But did you then kind of mentally attach to that person, emotionally attached to that person? So you before you ever.
For a long time.
Like define long.
Better part of a year.
Before you got in the same physical
because
space and sat across the table. Because she wasn't even in the
same state. Now, I actually knew her. It was someone from high school that I knew. So it wasn't like,
so you had met her. Yeah, she wasn't coming in cold.
Yeah, exactly. We knew who each other were. We were not ever romantically tied.
That's a little different context, though. You'd seen this person on a day in, day out basis.
Catfishing, I did not even understand it at first.
Yeah.
When I first heard the term, I'm like, what is that? And then I heard, Manti Teo was the thing. I was like, how do you not know that a person's real? And then I'm like, oh God, this is a real thing that a lot of people face. That blows my mind.
Yeah, walk us back on the Teo story for listeners who may not be
so
familiar with it.
Manti Te'o was a NFL player, used to be a play for Notre Dame, and he was in the running for the Heisman in the year this happened. So he was already a big deal. And he was talking about his girlfriend and how much she supported him and, all this other type of stuff. And then come to find out his girlfriend's not real. And I think the concept of catfishing was new to the general public.
Yeah,
I mean, people
it
who
seemed
had
to be a new thing on
people
the
who
scene,
experienced it before knew it was a real thing. And then there was, I guess, the documentary, which I've never watched, the documentary of Catfish.
It's good. It's actually
I've heard
really
it's
good.
Great.
Yeah.
But that's where the term came from to begin with. But Manti Te'o is the person who made it famous.
Yeah.
And so then he just got dragged through the media. I'm not lying. I was laughing at him too, because I'm like, how does that even happen?
Right.
To be honest, I still don't know how it happens to this day.
Do you think it's just people are willing to invest emotionally because they're just so starved for connection? Like they just want somebody that hears them and sees them and acknowledges them?
I think that's part of it. And I think the person who's doing the catfishing also has the same thing sometimes. Sometimes they just do it just because they're evil bastards. Other times they will do it because
Nigerian princes that are just looking for someone to give their money to.
Russian hackers, whatever the case may be. And then I think there are other people who they feel, for whatever reason, they don't connect with people in the real world.
Right.
And so they will go to the virtual world. This itself is not a new phenomenon. There were stories back when I was in college where people were, quote unquote, cheating on their real life spouse or significant other with people in this virtual world.
Right.
They were having full blown relationships, building houses together, having full lives together.
Really?
Some of them even had their kids taken away because they weren't paying attention to their kids. And all this was before texting really got huge.
That's a whole nother episode right there.
Oh, you're welcome.
What people will do with their
so
for attention.
So my point is, and I think I have no scientific backing on this whatsoever, but it just reminds me of, there was a study done, I don't know, a few years ago about how does your brain affect what you do in the real world, or how does your brain work in terms of motivation and different things like that. And they took some top level athletes, I think they were track runners, hooked them up to a bunch of stuff and told them to imagine every single aspect of the day of their race. From the time they wake up, what do they do, get on the bus, run it, all those type of things. And they measured what their brain activity did. It was the exact same as if they had done it in real life.
Wow.
So I think that our brains just automatically translate, oh, I'm in a relationship now. Like I said, I have zero scientific backing to say that, but I think there's a connection there.
I think you kind of make your own alternate reality. And if you're someone who's starving for connection or starving for attention or starving for love, and someone virtually or otherwise is fulfilling that role for you, you're going to attach to that.
And doing it in a virtual space is, quote unquote, safer.
Right.
Even though the emotions are the same, the heartbreak's going to be the same. The anger, the frustration, the elation, the lust, all that type of stuff, that's all going to be there. But you can do it on your own time and your own pace. You can ghost out of it at any moment when you want to.
Do it from the comfort of your home in your giant sweatpants and not have to brush your hair.
Exactly. You can literally Al Bundy on the couch and be in a full-blown relationship. And no one's the wiser. It's kind of freaky and scary and interesting all at the same time.
So how do you think, or do you think that utilizing phone calls, at the very least, if not FaceTime or video calls or Skype or whatever, what do you think people can learn from at least hearing someone's voice over the phone in real-time conversation prior to meeting them?
So, prior to meeting them, I think it would be nice to actually hear the person speak. Hear their voice. I mean, that gives you an extra connection to a person that you did not have before. Right. That could excite you. That could turn you off. There's all sorts of different things with that. I think that if you're going on a date, you should call. Yeah. You should call and ask for the date. especially if it's a first date.
Boy, that sounds really old school these days.
Hey, I'm an old school cat sometimes.
No,
I'm like right in that middle. Yeah. But I was before and during and now after all of the internet revolution.
Right.
So I've seen both ends of the field, and it's like I think there's more power into it if you call because this person's calling, that means they're taking me seriously.
Right.
And some people might still not like that, but do you really want to be with the person that doesn't want to take your phone call at that point?
Yeah. See, that's always the interesting thing for me too. It's like, and I have been guilty of doing this given the context of what else is going on at the time I receive a phone call. It is not at all unusual for me to send somebody to voicemail and then text them back and say, hey, sorry, I couldn't pick up your call. Here's what's going on here. But that doesn't mean I'm going to call them back.
Exactly.
It means I'm hoping they convert to text because I don't want the inconvenience.
A lot of people do that
of phone calls,
and a lot of times they don't even check their voicemails. That's
you just
another
text
thing.
Back before you even listen to your voicemail.
So it's even more difficult for a person who's trying to reach out to do so because I cannot tell you how many statuses I've seen, and there's memes and jokes about it where it's like, I don't know why you're calling me. I'm not going to pick up and I'm not going to check my voicemail.
Right.
So it's like we're creating a whole new language barrier in that type of communication. And it's kind of sad.
So what would be your, are you pro phone call prior to the first date or anti phone call prior to the first date? If you meet somebody on a dating app and you're getting to the point where you want to schedule a date or maybe you've already agreed to go out and now it's time to get down to details, how important do you think it is to call, or how weird is it for you to call prior to?
I don't think it's that deep.
Right. So you would err in the side of what, calling or not calling?
Either. I think you have to feel out the person, to be quite honest. I don't think it's that deep, especially if it's someone I've never met them before.
Right.
You don't owe them anything.
True.
And if they're comfortable texting you, and you two are just in the flow of a conversation, all right, go ahead and schedule that date. I think it's probably strategically better to call if you want the second date. I don't think the first date's nearly as deep.
Got it. Okay. No, I would kind of agree with that. So I had an experience a while back. It was a guy that I had connected with on, I believe it was Bumble at the time.
Been through a few apps, have you?
I've been on a lot of apps. I mean, it's research. I've been single a long time, friend. Like I've given them all a ride or two, but so I had met this guy on a dating app. I think it was Bumble. We had text, and then he was big into phone calls. He's a little bit older than me. Well, quite a bit older than me actually. So I don't know if it was like a generational thing, but I'm
sure that makes a major difference.
It was like direct to really all direct about phone call, and so we had this great conversation. And he translated very well. So we talked for, to get me to talk on the phone for any amount of time is, unless it's you, because your voice is like butter.
But that took some work even on my end,
right.
So I believe you.
You earned the right to have long conversations with me. But for someone new to come in and get that much of my time. So we talked for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's good to find stuff out about people on the phone, but then I feel like that can almost affirm a false sense of security, because this person in particular, we had great banter. Mm-hmm. We were able to talk on a wide variety of topics. He was very intelligent, very engaging, felt a deeper level of connectedness after the phone call than before the phone call. And then we met in person and there was less than zero chemistry.
Same thing happened to me with the one I was just telling you about not too long ago.
But so I'm kind of torn, because my goal with this episode is really to kind of give an affirmative or a negative and why, but I've experienced benefit and detriment in both cases.
Yeah, I'm like, there is no solid line. My big thing is, and this is more so for any relationship, long, short, whatever the case may be, but usually if it's a little bit longer, if there's something important that needs to be discussed, do not text.
Yeah, no.
Try your best to do it in person, but if you can't do it in person, at least a phone call.
And don't do the hit and run text either. Don't jab, and then when you see the person in person, be completely neutral.
Oh, yes.
Don't come one way and then be completely non-confrontational or act
passive aggressive,
act
all that type of
oblivious,
stuff.
like it never even happened when you're in that person's space, and then pick up that tone again via text as soon as you separate.
But then also realize whichever way you choose to communicate, especially if it's something negative, the other person's going to respond in a similar manner. I don't mean, oh, if you're negative, that person's going to be negative as well. I mean, if you text this person and you're starting drama, and whatever the case may be, the drama's coming back at you via text.
Yeah.
If you do it in face-to-face, it's going to be face-to-face. On the phone, it's going to be on the phone. If you text them, email, whatever the case may be, just know that that's probably the way it's going to come back to you.
Yeah.
And so then you can't get upset about the method in which the person communicated that message to you.
Right. But have you ever had the situation where there's like maybe tension or conflict or some sort of, discomfort in the conversation
and then
via
just
text,
vaporizes
and then
person.
you show up in that person's space and they're just like act like everything is so super cool,
and you're ready to fight.
right. You come in loaded up, right? You're like, dang, you've got the text, you're fired up, you're ready. Like you're like, okay, phase 2. Mm-hmm. Now this is going to get real. We're going to sit in the same space with each other, and we're going to continue this on. And then you show up, and that person is like, hey, how's it going?
It's very interesting to see how quickly people will back down when they're confronted personally.
Yeah.
Because
that's some bullshit, though.
That is, but I also think it has a lot to do with just social media in general. I don't even think that's text. I think that's transferred over from social media.
That's another episode,
because
too.
People are so used to just being able to just be
no accountability behind their words.
Be some damn fools online, anonymous or not. And then you'll get face to face with them. See, me, I'm the same no matter which way you approach me. I'm going to say what I say on Facebook to your face.
Right.
I'm going to say what I say through text to your face.
Right.
Email to your face.
But you're like an authentic real person who's comfortable defending your opinions.
Exactly. And I'm willingly put them out there too.
Right.
And I understand
and
not
you don't
everyone
start something unless you're okay engaging in it.
Exactly.
Like I know that about you.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But a lot of people just want to fire. They just want to grenade you.
But they're so used
and then walk away.
But they're so used to being able to do that on Twitter and Facebook and different places like that. And then by having to confront someone face to face or seeing them out in public or something, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, you're a person. That's the thing people forget.
Right.
Through text, through social media, whatever the case may be, there is a
device.
There is a person on the other end. So when you go one-on-one through a text, I think people forget that sometimes.
That eventually you could be standing in the same space and you're going to be accountable for what you just said.
Especially if it's your significant other. It's like, oh, you're going to see them again. Right. And they're not going to be happy. And you're going to be sitting there like, what's wrong with them? I got all my anger out. What's wrong with you now? And it's like, nah, homie.
Yeah.
This is now is the real conversation.
Yeah. Now it's about to get some realness in here.
What was that you were saying?
Yeah. Well, so here's what I'm going to do because I always want to leave somebody with the superpower tip and a teaching moment with each episode. So for this one, I'm going to err in the side that more information leads to better decisions.
Oh, God,
and
yes.
for the case of this, even though phone calls can be creepy or intrusive or catch you off guard or be totally different from how you're used to operating, I'm going to try to encourage people to be brave and have the phone call, especially if you met online or met on an app and you haven't done anything but text. Like, just have a casual phone call, even if it's to coordinate the time that you're meeting or the place that you're meeting. And here's why. So there's a couple of things I want you to do. And while you're being brave, hopefully you'll be rewarded. This is going to help work as a filter for you. So having even a quick phone call with somebody is going to tell you a couple of things. So you're going to be clued in on what's their tone. Are they somebody who comes across as very forceful? Are they somebody who comes across as uncertain? Are they somebody that comes across, like, do you not ever get to finish a sentence? Like, the way that people respond verbally tells you a lot about the personality behind that exchange and behind that voice.
And if you're going to be able to handle that.
Yeah, it talks to their level of confidence. It talks to how they view you, like their level of respect for you and how much they're willing to let you engage or lead in the conversation if that's your goal. And it can also help clue you in if somebody has a propensity towards being like dominant or angry
Oh, yeah.
Like you can sort all of those things out fairly quickly, at least get an idea. You won't know for sure, but it can give you just a little heightened, like if you hang up the phone with somebody and you have, and this has happened to me. I've had a phone call before a date with someone and I hung up and I kind of had that little intuitive like, he kind of, that was kind of aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that I should have listened to that intuition and not gone out with that person because he proved to confirm my suspicion. But the very first red flag was in that brief phone call.
But sometimes it's not that clear because I've been told on a first date that I can sound pompous. And because
that's because you use big words and you say them with authority.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not so much the big words. It's more of the I speak matter of factly. That's just how I speak.
Yeah.
And so to some people that turns them off.
Right.
Some people find that intriguing. And they're like,
but how much more valuable is it to me as a girl who's going to go out with you to have that phone call experience with you first and know that's your baseline. Like that's normal Andre, right?
But I think that's also just the way you think. You think in terms of baseline. A lot of people don't put that much thought into whatever, so they tend to react off of emotion.
Right.
And a matter-of-fact tone can really rankle somebody's nerves a little bit.
No, I see that. But I think that goes to kind of my next point, too, is it helps you establish their norm. Mm-hmm. So is somebody... Do they usually have a relaxed cadence or rate of speech? Or do they talk a little fast? Or do they talk a little slow? Do they punctuate strongly at the end of their sentences, or do their sentences go up at the end with the question inflection? So so it's kind of like, what is, if I'm going to run into Andre, if I'm the cashier at the grocery store, what am I going to hear? How are you going to show up to me? What's your norm?
It depends. Sometimes I'm very friendly. Sometimes I flirt.
Of course you do. You're going for those extra fuel points. Yeah, but the importance of getting a baseline and having a feel for somebody at that stage casually is that then you have something to detect variances from.
Oh, yes.
And that's really where, when it comes to nonverbal communication, when it comes to decoding people, especially vocally, you can know when you're going into a danger zone or when you're into a sensitive area or when you maybe need to remove yourself from their space when there's large variances or strong variances in how they normally speak and how they're coming at you. Like there's been I've been in situations where I knew somebody's baseline was kind of a slower rate of speech and they don't use a lot of filler words and they have a particular kind of level tone. And when I start hitting on points that's aggravating them or making them angry, the variance, like even though they're physically pretty well composed, the change in the voice tone, the uptick and filler words like or ahs, they're trying to kind of process what they're saying, and the speech gets quicker and their voice tone can either raise or lower, like relatively small in the big scope of things that could vary, but enough that I know it's not their normal.
Oh, yeah.
That tells me like I need to be more aware. I need to be more alert. You
should be trying to pick up on patterns as soon as possible, especially if it's someone that you're planning on seeing more of. Like it's hard to read a pattern off of one, even 2 dates.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for them and you're paying attention, nonverbal is definitely extremely important, but so is the verbal, so is the tone. Tone is everything. Tone, how they speak, all those things you just said. I was grounded for most of my
high school career for the tone not because I said anything offensive, but because of the tone of voice that I spoke to my mother in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talking has always been the thing that got me in trouble when I was growing up. I talk too much is what I was always told. My teachers love me. He talks too much. And then in terms of my parents, because they're very strict, especially in terms of how you communicate to adults and everything, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Was always you were being disrespectful because blah, 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 blah. And it almost always had to do with something I said.
Yeah, I feel you. I was right there with you. So let me get your closing thoughts here as we wrap up today's episode, Andre.
My clothing thoughts is that skinny jeans and men should go away. But what would you like to know about the closing thoughts?
For your closing thoughts, sometimes my letters get mixed up. Leave me alone.
It happens to us all.
We're not all so well polished and eloquent.
And neither am I.
Yes, no, you're always on point. Okay, so what is it? What's your recommendation for phone calls before first dates? Just, I know it's going to vary. I know it depends. But if you were going to say more times than not, you would yes call or no not call.
I would probably call.
And why?
If for nothing else, just to show that I am alert and attentive and paying attention and looking forward to whatever we're about to do.
Awesome.
So if we're about to go on a date, at least I'm going to call you like, hey, we got it set up for blah, 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 blah. Is that still a good time for you? Yada, yada, yada. If we can get into a more fun conversation than that, great.
Right.
But at least call before you go.
Yeah.
Like a good hour ahead of time. Let them know, okay, I'm in the person's mind. What we're about to do is in the person's mind. All right. And so no one's left wondering and sitting there waiting for the text like, all right, are you going to be there in 15? None of that type of stuff. So, yeah, I'd call.
Okay, cool. I'm going to affirm that as well. That's going to be my recommendation, just because I think, especially in a realm where you're working off of a dating app or a website and you don't really have anything more than a picture and maybe a sentence or two, I will always err on the side of having more information to work with than less. So if for no other reason, and to get a little bit of a glimpse and a little more data to make a good decision from, I say make the phone call before you go out on the first date. It gives you good insight into people that may not ever surface just through text or through their profile. So my recommendation, my encouragement to the listeners is to suck up the feelings of being awkward and have a phone call already.
Because you're going to see the person in person anyway.
Yeah. So you might as well have more information instead of less, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for being on today, Andre.
Always good to have me.
All right, guys, there you have it. Thanks for riding along with me on another episode of Shiny Things. You can't always control how someone else is going to show up, but you are totally in control of how you show up in every situation in your life, and dating is no exception. To get the outcome you want, show up as a person you need to be. It's totally on you. Let me know how you put today's superpower moment to good use as you're out and about in the real world. You can get me at least at powerbodylanguage.com. Visit my site, powerbodylanguage.com. Tell me all about your real life experience. Who knows? You might even end up getting to come in and be a guest with me like Andre did today. Until our next podcast date, keep showing up as the person you want to be.